Right, so let's get some reaction now. We're joined by political analyst Khanyi Magubane. Khanyi, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, these are negotiations very much like the Government of National Unity, marred by protracted talks, a number of stalemates, really just hinting at the strife between the two largest political parties being the ANC and DA. It's another botched announcement of the Gauteng provincial cabinet. What should we make of it?
Well, I don't think any of us could have anticipated that things would go the way they did tonight. But once again, it re-emphasizes the importance of the announcement of the cabinet, because Gauteng is a very important province. It is an economic hub of the country. It is a very powerful province, and we know that many parties do want to have a majority or control in this province, because it means a greater access to resources and power. Now, the dynamics in Gauteng are very different than they are in national in terms of the proportional numbers of the ANC and the DA. The ANC at 34% and the DA at 27% is a very different picture from what it is at a national. And we heard just now Soli saying that the ANC cannot act as if they have a far greater majority in Gauteng than the DA. They actually not. The two parties almost equalized, and as such, the cabinet allocation should also mirror that. But we saw the ANC tonight singing a very different tune. The Secretary General Khanyi Magubane, throwing a lot of jabs at the DA and saying that they wanted to act as if they owned the process and that they controlled the process, which has really been a very consistent accusation towards the DA, whether it's at national and provincial, that want to take control of negotiations. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to disadvantage them a lot more than it's going to work in their favor.
What would you say that the standoff indicates about the consistency that needs to be maintained? I mean, we're hearing of how Lesufi was ordered by Luthuli House to refrain from announcing cabinet, which excluded the DA after the party's demands, apparently for numerous MEC posts. What should we make of that situation?
Well, I think that the ANC in Gauteng was very certain that they are moving ahead without the DA today. However, given what has happened at a national level, and given that ANC leaders in the Government of National Unity have brought the DA into the fold, have given them a number of significant portfolios within the National Executive that was announced by the President, I think that it only makes sense that the same sentiment is carried down at a provincial level. It doesn't make sense to be antagonistic towards each other to the point of leaving out the DA when the two parties have tried at a national level to meet each other halfway, and we also how difficult that was. And so I think the seniors of both parties want to appeal to their provincial counterparts to try and find each other the same way that they had to also find each other. So I think that's where really things are at. But the firebrands of Gauteng, we saw a young cadets there, Taslim Mutara, Tikengniza, Lebogang Maile, Panyaza Lesufi himself is still a young leader in many eyes. They are the firebrands, and they are less diplomatic about things.
Well, all of this is happening, the tussle between the ANC and the DA. Of course, there are some pressing issues that residents need answers to, service delivery challenges that continue to cripple Gauteng and leave residents on the back foot. Let's talk a little bit about these challenges and how much of an impact the deliberations will have on the very people on the ground.
Well, you know, there's the saying that when the elephants fight, the grass suffers, and that saying couldn't ring more true than it does in the case of the residents of the city of Johannesburg and Greater Gauteng, whether you're talking about Ekurhuleni or Tshwane or even the West Rand. It doesn't matter which part of the province, there has been a significant shift in the level of service delivery that we've seen, particularly when we started with coalitions in 2016. There was an almost instant change in the level in which service is delivered, because the focus of those in municipalities started becoming power plays and power mongering, and not so much on going back to the basics of why they are there, because municipalities play a very important role in the three-level structure of government that we have in South Africa. They are the implementing bodies of the everyday lived experience of South Africans. South Africans, we're dealing with darkness in our streets. Not having load shedding has exposed the poor state of our infrastructure as far as street lights and robots are concerned, which really is still a big problem even as we speak. So how soon will these new cabinet ministers get to doing the job that they are, appointed to do by their constituents? I think that is the big question. The longer we wait, the longer they're going to take to get to work.
Yeah, more so after learning what Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi had to say when he outlined the province's milestones during the SOPA, saying that government has made progress in some areas, but of course admitting that they have also dropped the ball. More so if we look at National Treasury writing to the three metros, the city of Joburg, Tshwane and Ekurhuleni, around their inability to spend their capital infrastructure grants, which really talks to the job that lies ahead and how important the composition of this cabinet will need to be. What, in your mind, do you think are some of the key areas that need to be established here as the composition comes together and commits to working together?
Well, I think first things first, we need to get past the party politics, because once the appointments are done, you're no longer just representing your political party, but you are actually acting under guidance from your leader, which is the premier. You are one executive at that stage. And I think that's the first thing we need to do, get past, the different party politics. The second thing that I think they need to do is to look at the key focus areas that need to be dealt with in the short term. Some issues are more pressing than others. And I think one of the biggest issues in Gauteng, definitely as far as the different metros are concerned, is to deal with the issue of billing in the city, whether it's water billing or lights or rates and taxes. But we need to get that under control, because that's really the areas where local municipalities are able to collect revenues for themselves, because we know lower levels of government don't have as much autonomy as far as their own fiscal determination is concerned. And so the collection of rates and taxes becomes one of those avenues in which they can generate an income. Secondly, we need to get on with the business of fixing the city. Literally we need to do an inventory of the infrastructure, looking at our inner city buildings and looking at creating safe spaces in all the metros, having well-functioning departments. I think that each of the MECs that are going to be appointed when Panyaza eventually does announce his cabinet has to stop thinking of him or herself as a party representative or a deployee, but they actually have to look at themselves as a servant of the state, a servant of the public. So I think if they can adopt that mentality, this multi-party government of provincial unity that was supposed to be announced today could actually go far if they can just exercise political maturity.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion, Khanyi Magubane, who's a political analyst there, just speaking ahead of that much anticipated announcement by Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi.